Have you ever sat at your kitchen table and noticed how loud the silence has become? Maybe the chair across from you is still pulled out the way they used to leave it. Their slippers are by the bed. Their favorite mug is still in the cupboard. And yet, they're not here. It's a strange thing, losing the person you thought you'd grow old with. No one ever really prepares you for that kind of quiet. Not the doctors, not the family, not even the long years of growing older side by side. You think you'll go together, maybe holding hands in your sleep. Or at the very least you hope you go first, so you don't have to feel this. But sometimes, life writes a different ending. If you're here, chances are you've lost your husband or wife, or you're afraid of what it will be like when that day comes. And I want to start by saying, you are not alone, not even close. What you're going through is one of the hardest, most human things anyone can face. And while everyone's grief is different, there are some things I wish someone had told me when I first lost my wife, Margaret. We were married 51 years. She was my best friend, my history, my future, my home. So today, I want to talk to you heart to heart. No advice from a therapist, no preaching. Just one person to another, sharing 5 things I learned the hard way. 5 things you should never do when your spouse passes away first. Let's start with the first one, because it's the one I fell into almost immediately. I stopped picking up the phone. I ignored the knocks on the door. I let casseroles go cold on the counter. I told my daughter I was tired when really I just didn't want to face the world. And I convinced myself that if I could just be left alone, the grief would pass faster. That silence would help me heal. But I was wrong. Self-isolation doesn't protect you from pain. It feeds it. It gives grief room to grow wild. At first, I told myself I just needed some space. But space turned into days, then weeks, and soon I was just going through the motions. The house stayed dark most days. The TV stayed on just to fill the air with something, anything, other than that unbearable quiet. Then, one day, my neighbor Henry, he's a stubborn old goat, banged on my door until I finally opened it. He didn't say much. He just handed me a thermos of coffee and said, "Come sit on the porch." So I did. And we didn't talk much either. We just sat. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel completely alone. That small moment opened a crack in the wall I'd built around myself. Here's what I want you to remember. We're not built to grieve in silence. We heal in connection. We heal when someone sees us, even if they don't say the right words. Even if we cry the whole time. So if you're in that place right now, if you're sitting in that darkened living room thinking it's better to just be left alone, please open the door. Let someone in. Say yes to the invitation, even if you're not ready to laugh or talk. Just being around another soul who cares can make all the difference. Now the second thing I want to talk about is something I didn't notice until it almost took me down with it, my health. Or more accurately, how fast I let go of it. After Margaret died, I didn't really eat. Food lost all its flavor. The idea of cooking for one just felt sad. So I'd nibble on toast, maybe have a banana, drink some coffee, and call it a day. I lost weight without trying, and not in a healthy way. Worse than that, I skipped my medications more than once. I told myself, what's the point? The person I cared for most was gone. I didn't care what my blood pressure was, or if I made it to my next checkup. I didn't even care if I woke up the next day. And then one morning, I collapsed in the kitchen. Just like that. Out cold. My daughter found me and rushed me to the hospital. The doctor told me flat out, "Thomas, you're not just putting yourself at risk, you're hurting the people who still love you." That hit me hard. It made me realize that even though Margaret was gone, I wasn't. I was still here. My heart was still beating. I still had daughters, grandkids, friends, neighbors. And if I truly loved Margaret, I needed to honor the life we had by living, not fading away. If you're struggling to take care of yourself right now, I understand. I truly do. But even the smallest steps matter. Eat a real meal, drink water, take your medication. Go for a short walk around the block. Rest, stretch, breathe. You may not feel like it, but do it anyway. Because your life isn't over. Not yet. And your health is more than just numbers on a chart. It's the vehicle that lets you keep loving, keep helping, keep remembering, and keep making meaning. Your spouse may have passed, but you're still here. And that matters more than you know. There's a certain kind of smile we learn how to wear after a while. You know the one I'm talking about, that polite, practiced one you give at the grocery store when someone asks how you're doing. The kind you use when neighbors drop by and you don't want them to worry. You say, "I'm fine," even when your heart feels like it's been shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces. I used that smile a lot after Margaret passed. I thought it was better that way. Keep it together. Be strong for the kids. Be the steady one, the one who could take the hit and keep standing. I didn't want anyone to see the nights I cried into her pillow. Or the mornings when I forgot she was gone and reached out for her hand, only to touch an empty sheet. But I'll tell you something that took me a long time to learn. Pretending you're okay doesn't make you strong. It just makes you tired. Exhausted, really. Grief has a funny way of finding its way out. You can try to bury it deep, push it down, cover it up with chores or small talk or fake smiles. But it always finds a crack. And when it does, it usually pours out when you least expect it. For me, it happened in the garden. I was kneeling by the rose bush Margaret had planted the year we moved in, her favorite spot. I was pulling weeds, not really thinking, just moving through the motions. And then my grandson came out, maybe 5 years old at the time. He looked at me with those wide eyes, touched my hand, and said, "You miss Grandma, huh?" That's all it took. I broke. Right there, in the dirt. The sobs hit me so hard, I couldn't stop them. I cried like I hadn't cried since the day we said goodbye, and do you know what happened? Nothing bad. The world didn't end. My grandson didn't get scared, he just stayed there, holding my hand. In that moment, I realized that being honest about your pain doesn't make you a burden. It makes you human, and it lets the people around you show up for you in a real way. So please, if you're pretending right now, if you're putting on that brave face every day and hiding what's really going on, I want to say this clearly. You don't have to. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to smile when you don't feel like it. You don't have to say, "I'm fine," when you're not. It's okay to say, "I'm hurting." It's okay to fall apart. And it's more than okay to ask for help. Talk to a friend, a pastor, a support group, a therapist. Even just writing in a journal can help more than you think. Because pain that is voiced can begin to move. It can begin to heal. Now, that brings me to something even harder to talk about, and maybe you've felt it too. It's the feeling that life just doesn't mean anything anymore. That hollow emptiness. That quiet whisper that says, "What's the point?" After all, your mornings used to begin with them. Your evenings ended beside them. You cooked together, cleaned together, argued, laughed, planned vacations, talked about grandkids, made grocery lists. You had someone to check the weather with, watch TV with, and fall asleep next to. And now, none of that is there. I remember waking up one morning, weeks after Margaret passed, and the thought hit me like a brick. I don't have anyone to say good morning to anymore. It was such a small thing, but it broke something inside me. And for a while, I honestly believed that my life had already ended. I just hadn't stopped breathing yet. But that's not true. And if you're feeling that way today, let me say it again. That is not true. Yes, your life has changed. Yes, the person you loved most is no longer beside you in the way they used to be. But you are still here. And that means your story isn't over. I know it doesn't feel like it. Believe me, I know. But life still has meaning. It just might be quieter now, smaller, slower. But that doesn't mean it's empty. The way the sunlight comes through the window in the morning, that still matters. The smile your grandchild gives you when you remember their birthday, that matters. The neighbor who waves to you while watering their plants, the breeze that rustles the leaves, the smell of fresh brewed coffee on a cold day, those moments still matter. And slowly, Without even realizing it, those little pieces start to build something new. Not a replacement for what you had. Never that. But a reminder that you are still capable of joy, of laughter, of warmth. You may not be living the life you planned, but that doesn't mean it can't still be a good one. Some people find new purpose by volunteering, others by teaching, mentoring, reconnecting with old friends, or simply tending to their garden. For me, it started with reading books to children at the local library. That first day, I nearly backed out. But those little faces, their questions, their giggles, they woke something up inside me that had gone quiet. And in that moment, I didn't feel like a man whose life had ended. I felt like someone beginning again. When you lose the person you built your life with, it's natural to want to do something, anything, to make the pain stop. I remember staring at the walls of our house just days after Margaret passed and thinking, I can't stay here. Every room had a memory. Every photo, every chair, every creak in the floor reminded me of her. So I started boxing things up. Her sweaters, her books, the ceramic cat she kept by the window. I called a real estate agent. I told my daughter I was thinking of selling the house and moving away. Maybe if I left, I'd stop feeling so haunted. Maybe starting over somewhere else would quiet the ache. But my daughter, Lily, she's got her mother's calm. She came over one night and sat with me in the kitchen. She didn't try to talk me out of anything right away. She just said, Dad, you don't have to outrun your memories. You just have to learn how to sit with them. And that stopped me in my tracks. In the fog of grief, everything feels urgent. You think if you just change your surroundings, the pain won't find you. But what I've learned, and what I hope you'll hear, is that grief follows you wherever you go. It's not about the house. It's not about the clothes or the dishes or the town. It's about the life you shared. And there's no shortcut through that. So I unpacked the boxes. I made her side of the closet neat again. I put her books back on the shelf, with her notes still scribbled in the margins. Some days those notes make me cry. But more and more, they make me smile. Like she's still here, whispering a joke in the quiet. I kept the chipped mug she loved. The scarf that still smells faintly like her perfume. I stayed in the house we built together. And over time, it began to feel less like a museum and more like a home again. That's why I want to say this as clearly as I can. Don't rush to make big decisions. Not right away. Not when your heart is broken and your mind is cloudy. Give yourself time. Let the grief settle. Let the dust clear. You don't have to donate their clothes tomorrow. You don't have to sell the house next week. You don't have to move, remarry, or redefine your whole life right now. You just have to breathe. And when the time comes, when you feel calm, not panicked, you'll know what to keep, what to change, and what new chapter you're ready to write. There's no timeline, no finish line, no one-size-fits-all path. This journey is yours. And if you're still wondering, how do I live now? The truth is, you already are. By showing up today, by listening, by remembering, by feeling. That's living. It doesn't have to be loud or fast or impressive. Sometimes it just looks like getting out of bed, watering the plants, answering the phone, saying yes when someone offers a cup of coffee or a walk around the block. Your life still matters. You still have value, wisdom, laughter, stories, love. You still have people who care about you, people who want to see you thrive, not just survive. And maybe, just maybe, you have more love to give. To your community, to your grandchildren, to a stranger on a bench who needs a smile, or even to yourself. Margaret used to say, "Love never dies, it just changes form." I didn't really understand that until after she was gone. But now, I see it everywhere. In the way her kindness still shows up through me. In the meals I cook using her recipes. In the way I hug my grandkids a little longer. In the way I sit on the porch and talk to Henry, just like she used to. Love doesn't leave us. It just takes on a new shape. And it stays with us, quietly guiding our steps, one day at a time. So if you're hurting right now, please know this. You're not broken, you're grieving. And that's a sign of deep, beautiful love. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep going. Slowly, gently, with grace for yourself. If this message touched something in you today, I hope you'll take a moment to leave a comment. Share your story, or simply say their name, your husband, your wife, the one you're missing. This space is for you. You're not alone. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, more real conversations from folks who've walked this road, please consider clicking like and subscribing to our channel, Strong Elderly Life. We're here to walk with you through the hard days and to celebrate the good ones too. Here's to living your life fully, even after loss. Here's to laughing again, loving again, remembering well, and knowing deep in your heart, they never really left you. They're just waiting until you meet again.